The 2026 World Cup is only a few months away, and with that being said, in today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys who I think are going to be the dark horses in the 2026 World Cup. A lot of football fans may say teams like Senegal, teams like Croatia, teams like Colombia, but in my opinion, the dark horses for the 2026 World Cup is Norway. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys why Norway are my dark horses for the 2026 World Cup, and I'm also going to be telling you guys why Norway could make it surprisingly far in the 2026 World Cup. I'm going to talk about why their team stacks so well amongst many of Europe's best teams and the best teams in the world, and why they could have a very good run in this World Cup. Before I get into this video, remember to subscribe to the channel as I'm almost at 7,000 subscribers and I can't do it without you guys. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Before we talk about Norway at the present time, we have to look at their history. Now, throughout history, Norway haven't been a particularly good team in football. Yes, they've always been a decent team, but they've never really been at that top level. I will say that the best periods for Norway were in the late 90s, in the 1994 and 1998 World Cup, as well in the Euros in the 2000s. Other than those three competitions, the only other international competition that Norway ever competed in was the 1938 World Cup. So they've only made it to 4 international competitions before this World Cup. Their best World Cup run was in 1998, where they did make it to the round of 16, but eventually they did end up losing. But so far, that was Norway's best period. But if you look at Norway throughout the last 20 years, they have not been good at all. Their last major competition was in 2000, and that was the Euros. So it's been 26 years since Norway has competed in a top tier competition. And I find it very surprising that the Norway Football Federation decided to stick with their manager Ståle Solbakken even after he failed to qualify for the 2022 World Cup and the 2024 Euros. It looked like they were definitely going to fire him, but they ended up sticking with him. Obviously, he did play in that 1998 World Cup, and I thought that was an amazing decision because so far this year, Solbakken has been incredible. The way he's gotten Norway to play in the 2026 qualifiers is absolutely incredible. Now let's talk about Norway at the current moment. As I mentioned, Solbakken has gotten his team to play absolutely incredibly. And if you look at Norway in the World Cup qualifiers, they were arguably one of the best teams. They went 8 for 8. They won every single game while having teams like Italy in their group. And on top of that, they were the top goal scorers as well. Norway scored 37 goals in 8 games in the World Cup qualifiers. That's an average of over 4 goals for every single game they play, and their top goal scorer was Erling Haaland, scoring 16 goals in 8 matches, which is absolutely incredible. But it wasn't only him. Other players like Antonio Nusa, Sorloth, and if you look at Ødegaard with all his assists, as a collective, Norway's attack was incredible in the qualifiers. And I've heard a lot of people say that Norway had an easy group with teams like Moldova and teams like Estonia. But if you take a nation like England, who had Andorra in their group, they only beat Andorra 1-0. So if you take in the fact that Norway were able to beat Moldova 11-1, and Moldova being a better team than Andorra, I think Norway were pretty phenomenal. But it's not only Norway's players that make them such an incredible national team. It's also the way they play football and the tactics that their manager Solbakken has gotten them to play, but also the way the players play and how every player's physical attributes contributes to the team is a really big help for this Norway national team. First of all, if you look at the height of this Norway team, they have arguably one of the tallest squads in world football. The average height of their lineup is about 6'2", and with this height, it allows them to be so lethal off of set pieces and off of crosses. And that is one area of Norway's play style which has really benefited them in the World Cup qualifiers and will continue to benefit them in the World Cup. The way that they cross in the ball so much with players like Haaland and players like Sorloth being in the box, it's so helpful. They get so many headers and they score off so many set pieces. And that is Norway's specialty. Now, if you look at the way they play football and their formation, we've seen them rotate through a variety of formations. We've seen them play in the 4-4-2, we've seen them play a 4-2-3-1, we've seen them play a 4-3-3, but in my opinion, the best suited formation for the Norway national team heading into this World Cup is the 4-4-2. I think that them playing in this formation is absolutely phenomenal. If you put Sorloth and Haaland in the 2 striker positions, you put Nusa on the left, Oscar Bob on the right, and in the midfield, you have Berg and also Ødegaard. I think that attack and midfield is one of the best attacks in the world. I think it's absolutely incredible. And the reason for that is because the two strikers in Haaland and Sorloth are incredibly tall. They're both about 6'4". They can get headers, they're fast, and they have some great shooting capabilities. And that paired up with the two wingers in Antonio Nusa and Oscar Bob, these are two very skillful wingers. They're very fast, they're very young, energetic players, and the ability that they have to take on fullbacks one-on-one, to get by them and to cross it into the box for players like Haaland and Sorloth, it makes for an incredible attack. And that's one of the reasons why Norway scored so many goals, due to players like Antonio Nusa and Oscar Bob taking on their defenders one by one, crossing it into the box. And they may be jammy goals, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, Haaland scored 16 goals in 8 matches. And then if you move on to the midfield duo of Sander Berg and Martin Ødegaard, I think this is a perfect midfield because you have a player like Ødegaard who is one of the best attacking midfielders in the Premier League. He's such a creative player. The passing ability he has to thread balls through to the wingers, to the strikers, and that is a reason why Haaland also scored so many goals, is because of the through balls that Ødegaard was able to give to Haaland. But then playing alongside Ødegaard, you have Sander Berg, who is a more defensive midfielder, very tall, very strong, has some great tackling capabilities, but also has good passing ability as well. Now, if you look at Norway's defense throughout the World Cup qualifiers, for a majority of the games they played, they were playing in a mid block, and this was really important to them because it allows the defenders to be very compact, but it also limits the ability for opposing attacks to play through balls and to get easy penetration behind the center backs. Norway center backs aren't very fast. Ajer and Hagem aren't very fast players, and they're not the best center backs, but what they do have is the height. Both of these players are 6'2" and 6'6" respectively, and with that height, you cannot get through balls in the air past these players because they can get a header on almost every single ball. So pretty much the only way to beat these players is by through balls, and playing in that mid block, it really nullifies the opponent's attack. Now, for me, a main weakness for this Norway team is their defensive trio of the two center backs in Hagem and Ajer, and also their goalkeeper in Nyland. I don't think these players are bad, but I do think this is their weakest point in their team, and we did see that get exploited in a couple of the games they played, and that's why they did concede a few goals. But with that being said, even though Nyland may not be the best keeper, and he is more often than not a second choice keeper for Sevilla at the moment, it doesn't really matter because with the high volume of goals that Norway scores, having scored so much more than any other team in the World Cup qualifying, it doesn't really matter if they concede a goal or maybe even 2 goals because the way they play on the attack is so deadly and their counterattacks are so deadly. The way that they can pass the ball from Sander Berg to Ødegaard to Oscar Bob right to Haaland for an easy goal. They've done this so many times. We saw them do it against Israel. We saw them do it against Estonia, Moldova, and especially against Italy. And this could realistically hurt any team in the world. But one other weakness I did see in Norway, and I saw this in a few of the games they played, especially in the second match against Italy, is they cannot get comfortable against another team. They cannot conform to the way the opposing team is playing. Norway need to play their game, and that is having a compact midfield, a compact defense, playing in that mid block and hurting teams on the counter attack. But they can't just sit back and let teams attack them. They can't do that because we saw that in their most recent game against Italy, and Italy did score first. Now in the second half, Norway went back to their original game plan and they ended up scoring 4 goals against Italy. But realistically, against a stronger team like France, England, or Spain, if you sit back that deep and you just allow pressure from the other team, Norway will concede. Like I already mentioned, their center backs and their goalkeeper, yes, they're decent players, but they're definitely the weak point for this Norway team. So in my opinion, the way Norway will beat majority of the teams is by playing attacking football, by playing fast football, and by hitting teams on the counter attack, by using their wingers and playing very wide, because that's arguably Norway's biggest strength is with Antonio Nusa and Oscar Bob. And by using this wide style of play, it can really spread out the opposing team and allow for crosses into the box, for plays into the box with Erling Haaland, Sorloth, Strand Larsen, whoever's the striker, and that's how they can hurt any team in the world. And that's the end of this video. If you guys enjoyed this tactical breakdown and you want to see more tactical breakdowns of some of Europe's best teams, of some of the South American teams, let me know in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, as I'm almost at 7,000 subscribers and I can't do it without you guys. And as always, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.